Hello students! You know that our planet Earth has a great variety of plants and animals. Recall that some of physical and biological factors along with their chemical interactions that affects an organism is called the environment. Organisms maintain a balance with each other and with biotic and abiotic factors. The physical factors or abiotic factors include land, air, water, sunlight, etc. And biological or biotic factors include living organisms. The place where an organism lives is called the biosphere. The word ecosystem was first used in 1935 by A.G. Tansley, a British botanist and ecologist, to describe a basic unit of environment. The term ecosystem is defined as studying the interrelationships of an individual and those living in the environment. Learning objectives. After the completion of this lesson, you will be able to know food chain and food webs, pyramid of biomass, pyramid of numbers, pyramid of energy. Keywords: ecosystem, food chain, food web, producers, consumers, decomposers. नीचे ecological pyramid, biomass. Let us observe the concept map of the ecosystem here. You have understood the relationships between organisms and their food in earlier classes with the help of food chains and food webs. Food chains are interconnected and the connections among several food chains result in a food web. A food chain shows who eats what in a particular habitat. The arrows between each organism in the chain always point from the food to the feeder. For example, a food chain can be shown as follows: grass, rabbit, snake, hawk. The food chain moves from producer to consumer like primary, secondary and tertiary levels in a food chain, and the number of organisms at each level decreases. In an ecosystem, the energy-rich food passes from producers to consumers stepwise, concerning their relationships. Food chain shows how energy is passed from one organism to another. At each transfer, a large proportion of 80 to 90% of energy is dissipated as heat is produced during the process of respiration and other ways. Thus, a 3 or 4-step food chain contains very little energy for living organisms. Within the biosphere are several major ecosystems like terrestrial, aquatic, and desert ecosystems. The terrestrial ecosystems are determined largely by the variations in climatic conditions between the poles and the equator. We find comparable ecosystems starting with the tropical rainforests at the base and ending with the perpetual snow and ice at the summit. The climatic factors that influence these ecosystems are rainfall, temperature, and the availability of light from the sun. Forests have high rainfall, but the type of forest is influenced by temperature and light. The same applies to desert regions with extremely low rainfall. The food chain in an ecosystem is based on the interrelationships of organisms. For example, aphids are eaten by many insectivorous birds and warblers, ladybirds, and other insects. Hawks prey upon a considerable variety of birds and small mammals. The term food web is a better term to suggest a greater number of possible links among the whole community as a complex interconnected unit. The animals fit into special positions within the food web described as its niche. The aphids that suck plant juices occupy a niche. Caterpillars able to bite the pieces of leaves occupy another niche. A niche is occupied by relatively large grazing animals like deer. All these animals feed on leaves, but they differ both in size and in the manner of feeding. The term niche denotes the animal's position in the food web based on the type of food and the mode of life. A habitat is a living place for an animal, while a niche describes the occupation of the organism and how it earns its living. What are ecological pyramids? The nutritional relationships of organisms at different trophic levels involves energy, the number of individuals, and their biomass. The graphical representation of these relationships assumes the shape of pyramids called ecological pyramids. It was first introduced by a British ecologist, Charles Elton, in 1927. In an ecological pyramid, producers occupy the base and the different levels of consumers occupy the successive tiers. Thus, the tertiary consumers form the apex of the pyramid. There are three types of pyramids: pyramid of biomass, pyramid of numbers, and pyramid of energy. A pyramid constructed based on the number of individuals occupying a given trophic level at a given period is called a pyramid of numbers. Each bar represents the number of individuals at each trophic level in the food chain. At each link in a food chain, from the primary consumers to the large carnivores, there is an increase in size but a decrease in numbers. In the most of the ecosystem, the pyramid of numbers for several food chains will be upright. Sometimes the pyramid of numbers doesn't look like a pyramid at all or is inverted. This could happen if the producer is a large tree or if one of the organisms is any trophic level is very small. Biomass is organic material derived from carbon dioxide fixation by photosynthesis. This includes trees, shrubs, crops, grasses, algae, aquatic plants, agricultural and forest residues, and all forms of human animal waste. Any type of plant or animal material that can be converted into energy is called biomass. These materials used for energy production are known as biofuels. The pyramid of biomass represents the relationships between the quantity of living matter or biomass at different trophic levels. In terrestrial ecosystems, the biomass progressively decreases from producers to top carnivores. In an aquatic ecosystem, the biomass of phytoplankton is quite negligible as compared to that of the crustaceans and small herbivorous fish that feed on these producers. The biomass of large carnivorous fish living on the small fishes is still greater and makes the pyramid of biomass inverted. It is found that 10 to 20% of the biomass is transferred from one trophic level to the next in a food chain. Many animals convert not more than 10% of their food into their body tissues. In a food chain, the plant plankton on the sea surface waters are food producers. The animal plankton feed on the microscopic plants and the fish in turn feed on the animal plankton. The humans are at the end of the chain and eat fish. In this, roughly 90% of the food is lost at each step. So, the 1000 kg of plant plankton produces 100 kg of animal plankton to 10 kg of fish producing 1 kg of human tissues, with the corresponding loss of the original plant potential energy. Thus, the animal species near the original plant source in a food chain obtains a greater amount of energy. In other words, the fewer steps in the food chain, the more energy will be for the species at the top. Food is the source of energy for organisms used in the growth and rebuilding of body parts. The food is the chemical energy and its stored form is the potential energy. A pyramid constructed based on the amount of energy fixed at each level is called a pyramid of energy. In any ecosystem for any food chain, the pyramid of energy will be always upright. The energy of sunlight, carbon dioxide and water can be made available in a suitable form of energy by photosynthesis. The food chains and food webs help in the transfer of food and energy from the producers to different consumers. Animals obtain minerals from plant or animal food or both. Assimilated energy is available for the synthesis of new biomass through growth and reproduction. Organisms lose biomass by death or disease and enter the detritus food chain. The decomposition of organisms allows the materials to flow back into the environment. The materials keep on cycling, and such a flow of materials between organisms and the environment is called the cycling of materials or biogeochemical cycles. In natural communities, energy used to perform work or dissipated as heat cannot be consumed by other organisms and is forever lost to the ecosystem. Thank you so much for watching this video. Stay tuned for more videos like this.